Members, please take your seat. As you're taking your seat, that gives me a moment to just clarify this meeting time and place. We have finally come as close as we can to resolving the major conflict between the meetings of subcommittees and committees of both courts and finance. Therefore, from here on out, as soon as the House adjourns, it'll be here in House Room 3 on Wednesdays. And I do plead with you as soon as House adjourns, because Court Subcommittee is waiting, and it's Criminal Law Subcommittee, and they're the ones that meet long into the night. So we need to be efficient about our full committee deliberations while still making sure that we have the appropriate consideration of each bill before us. Now then, on Monday morning, I'm afraid I've had to move that to 8 a.m. for subcommittee meetings. Subcommittees, 8 a.m., 1 and 2 on Monday mornings, so that we have at least an hour and a half before the conflicts start with Education Committee, etc. I have looked at each of your schedules, trying to accommodate to the greatest degree possible you having to be in multiple places at the same time. The meeting places for subcommittees will be in the Pocahontas room, rooms 400A and 400C. I certainly do apologize that these cannot be live streamed, and yet that was the only way in which we could resolve the issues, again, of having proper coverage of the members between these subcommittees. So again, from here on out, Mondays, 8 a.m., House Room, Pocahontas 400A and 400C for subcommittees 1 and 2. Those dockets will be out shortly. With that, if there's no other questions, if we can turn then to the docket before us. First of all, as you will see on the docket, House Bill 343, there has been a request that that be re-referred to I believe it's county, cities, and towns. This has to do simply with whether or not counties help a nonprofit organization, and there's a long list of similar actions that counties, cities, and towns are able to do. This is a voice vote. May I hear a voice vote to re-refer?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The next on our docket are 3 bills where we have been asked to re-refer bills that are before us. We will vote on these as a block, but I want to make sure that you have complete awareness and any questions that of any you'd like to remove from the block. The first one, House Bill 530, is about health care coverage, and it's going to Labor and Commerce because it is purely about qualified health plans. The next one has been requested that it go to appropriations. That's House Bill 604. The reason this is going to appropriations is it basically just deals with employee benefits. It is not something where we were talking about fiscal impact, but rather management of employee benefits. The next one, House Bill 779. This one is refueling of vehicles. While it involves a tax, it's just simply saying, in addition to diesel, we're going to consider gasoline, therefore it's appropriately before transportation. And finally, to House Joint Resolution 2, which is being re-referred to rules, and it's a constitutional amendment about affordable housing. Are there any questions? If not,
Madam Chair,
I entertain a motion to re-refer these bills as a block.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, before I make a motion, I think we just want to answer a question from the...
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry. Thank you. And again, you did use your request to speak button. Thank you, Mr. Former Chair, or Mr. Chair Honorary, or whatever.
Keem says emeritus. I don't know if I like that
emeritus, I like that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On House Joint Resolution 2, which is a constitutional amendment, I ask to some extent in ignorance. I'm thinking most constitutional amendments go to P&E. Am I remembering that correctly? Maybe somebody here.
That would as far as my institutional memory, that would be correct, but I have been requested by the Speaker to send it to Rules in this case. However, obviously, it would not be something that has to be acted on until the next session.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions? Motions in order?
Move the report. Move to refer.
This is a voice vote. All those in favor of re-referring these 5 bills, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Bills are re-referred. Now it's time for reports of subcommittee. First, Subcommittee 1, Delegate Keim.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Subcommittee 1 had a long meeting on Monday, but so far the only bill that we're reporting is the one before us, House Bill 341, patroned by Delegate Rome. This is a bill that would allow for the Department of Tax, working with the Department of Social Services, to be able to share some information that is currently unable to be shared because it's tax information pertaining to EITCs, as long as the two agencies work in a written agreement about the narrowness of the sharing of the information. This was requested by the agencies in order for them to effectuate some of the changes that they want to have. And so, Madam Chair, this was reported, thoroughly debated and reported on a vote of 6-3, and I so move.
Is there any questions, discussion? Do we ask for the audience comment?
No. Madam Chair, this was heard in a subcommittee, and I believe that both members of the subcommittee as well as members of the public who were there were able to weigh in. And I do know that the delegate patron is here, but I don't think that she needs to say anything about this unless a question comes up.
And it's been duly seconded? If there's no further questions, all those in favor, this is a recorded vote. Please open the voting board. Record your vote on the electronic voting board. Have all those who voted, choose to vote, have voted? The vote is closed. The bill passes 12-8 with no abstentions.
That completes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Keim. The report of Subcommittee 2, Delegate Heretic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first up is House Bill 62, Delegates Hope Bill, which would eliminate the sunset provision for the transitory occupancy tax of Arlington County. This reported from Subcommittee 6-2, and I so move.
Is there any? Are there any questions? Discussion? Is there duly seconded? I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Clerk, please open the roll. Please cast your vote on the electronic voting machine. Have all voted who wish to vote? Thank you. The vote is closed. The bill passes 14-7, no abstentions.
Madam Chair, House Bill 309, Delegate Bloxham's bill, did report from Subcommittee 7-1, but Delegate Bloxham asked to strike and withdraw the bill.
Are there any questions, concerns? If not, please open the roll. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All those who wish to vote on the electronic voting machine. I'll get this down yet.
The motion is to strike.
Okay. If all those voted who wish to vote, the vote is closed. HB 309 passes 20-1, no abstentions.
Madam Chair, you said passes. You said the bill passes, I thought, but
The bill was stricken. The motion was successful.
I'm just making sure the ruling of the chair is that we just struck the bill.
I thank you very much for all the help I can get.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. It's worth it. It's good. We're good. We're good.
Madam Chair, House Bill 535, Delegate Carr's bill, deals with the sale of delinquent real estate by nonprofit organizations. It was reported from Subcommittee 7-2, and I so move.
Sir, are there any questions? Discussion? If not, clerk, please open the roll. All those who wish to vote on the electronic voting machine. Have all voted who wish to vote? Vote is closed. HB 535 passes by a vote of 18 yea, 4 no, no abstentions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 537, Delegate Carr's bill, would extend the real estate tax exemption for property and redevelopment and conservation areas from 15 to 30 years. The subcommittee reported 5-4, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions, concerns? Yes, Delegate Ware.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd ask the subcommittee chairman, I see it was a fairly split vote. Can he or somebody who was on the negative give an indication why there were reservations?
Madam Chair, I believe Delegate Carr is here.
Delegate Carr, would you care to take the microphone to respond to the delegates' questions?
Madam Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I think Delegate Ware had asked kind of why there were some negative votes, and I was just going to share some of the discussion. I was one of those who voted on the negative. Understand the patron's intent, but we just felt that going from 15 to 30 years, there can be significant changes in communities during a 30-year time frame, different changes in the focus, economic development, things of that nature. And so it wasn't the underlying policy embodied in the bill and the original legislation before amendment. Just we felt going from 15 to 30 was moving it too far in that direction.
Thank you. Delegate Ware, would you care to hear
No,
from
that's fine.
Are there
Thank
other
you.
questions, concerns?
Madam Chairman, this was the
Yes, Delegate Carr.
this was the request of the City of Richmond.
Thank you. If there are no further questions or concerns, would you please open the vote, Madam Clerk? All those who care to vote on HB 537 on the electronic voting machine. All those who care to vote have voted. HB 537 passes on a vote of 12 yes, 9 nay, 1 abstention.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And finally, House Bill 724, Delegate Reed's bill, extends the sunset date for the classification of certain tangible real property, personal property rather, from June of 2019 to June to 2029 for satellites. Who knew? This reported from subcommittee unanimously 8-0, and I so move.
Are there any questions, any concerns? I'm sorry, forgive me. There are technical corrections. Would the council please report the amendments needed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment here is just a technical correction. There were an enactment clause was placed on the bill in subcommittee that was not quite in the proper form. So what I'm suggesting is that the committee reject the subcommittee amendment and then agree to a revised amendment that I will read out to you. And this just corrects the language and also conforms to the Senate version of the bill so we can avoid a conference.
Thank you. Given that I do not believe the subcommittee amendment was moved, I believe we can go directly then to the committee amendment. Council, would you report the committee amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair. It is on line 240, after line 246, introduced, insert a enactment clause number 2 that this act shall be effective for taxable years beginning on and after January 1, 2019.
A motion is in order.
I would move the adoption of the amendment.
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions of council? If not, I believe this is a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendment as reported, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment is passed. And the vote before us then is, if there are no further questions, the 724 as amended, please.
Second.
Clerk, please open the roll. All those who care to vote on the electronic voting machine, I'll get it straight. All right. All those who care to vote have voted. Delegate Byron, you wish to be recorded as yes. The HB 724 passes by a vote of 22, and you're now on the board unanimously. Delegate Lindsay? Is it?
But is this the one? I know how to do it. Is this the one? Vivian, is this the one? Is this the bill? So that's what I'm not sure.
Excuse me.
No, it's 7:30. This is another.
Thank you. The next on the agenda is, and forgive me, my agenda is not fully before me. We also have items of full consideration, and that is before us are House Bill 553 and House Bill 539. These bills are on the same subject, and I recognize Delegate Converse Fowler to present 589. Excuse me, 839. We'll get it.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have an amendment I would like to put in front. It's an emergency clause on the bill.
Pardon?
An amendment, an emergency clause. Is that before you?
If you would present it, and then I will ask for it.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you, Madam Chair. My bill, HB 839, would provide an exemption on a will or a grant of administration of the estate of an individual who died as a result of the Virginia Beach mass shooting. Congress has passed the Virginia Beach Strong Act that ensures donations to immediate family members of victims are tax deductible. My bill addresses the piece that the VB Strong Act didn't cover. If a person eligible for the tax exemption has already paid a tax, then it would be refunded by the Commonwealth or locality as applicable. We are all aware of the events that occurred that day, the lives lost, and the lives changed forever. I want to ensure we are taking care of those families any way we can. Thank you, Madam Chair, for considering this important piece of legislation.
Thank you. And I believe you have an amendment. Council, if you will report the amendment.
Sure, Madam Chair. There are 3 amendments. This just conforms the bill to the Senate version that was passed as well. The first is on line 6, introduced. In the title, after shooting, insert semicolon emergency. The second on line 19, after prior to, strike July 1, 2020, insert the effective date of this act. And the third amendment, after line 25, introduced, insert an enactment clause, number 3, that an emergency exists and this act is enforced from its passage.
Madam Chair, I move those amendments.
Second. Do I have a second? Is there any questions about the amendments? I believe this is a voice vote. All those in favor of the amendments as reported, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Before we vote on this bill, it is my understanding, Delegate Knight, that you are comfortable with incorporating House Bill 53 in this bill?
Madam, I notice you're correct. I have House Bill 53. And that was House Bill 800 and something or other.
839,
yes,
and
ma'am.
We would incorporate in.
I notice it's been general practice to go with the lower number and incorporate the higher number into it. So no one had said anything to me about it. I'm hearing it from you now. So okay. I'll, of course, do what the chair would like to do, but it's not standard practice.
Thank you. In this case, the reason for incorporating into the higher number, 839, is because the higher number did not have the provision about the deductions, which your bill did, so that House Bill 839 was in line with the not having the budget impact that your bill would have had.
No, my bill had an amendment, a substitute amendment also. So my bill, was, we can check the timestamps. I was a long time before this one.
And I hope that you will be chief co-patron.
Thanks for letting me know.
Right.
Madam Chair. Yeah.
All right. So
Madam Chair, just a parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Delegate King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just based on what the delegate had just mentioned, that his House Bill 53, which is also before this body now, my understanding is that the patron had wanted, or his intent was to have a substitute that would have changed House Bill 53 into a different version that we have in front of us. So might it not be in proper order for us to make the substitute amendment to Delegate Knight's House Bill 53, and then once that's properly before us, to incorporate that into House Bill 839? Would that make the parliamentary process
Thank you,
better?
Delegate King. That is exactly the appropriate procedure. Having said that, then if Delegate Knight, if you would again present your bill, my apologies, as I'm still on a learning curve. If you would present your bill and present it as you wish with amendment, this would put everything in the right posture.
Yes, ma'am. House Bill 53 has an amendment in the nature of a substitute. If council has that, I believe he may have already given it to you. But he can, if you would ask him, Madam Chairman, to distribute that.
Madam Chair, I can distribute it, or I can just say it. The substitute to House Bill 53 makes it the same as House Bill 839, as well as the Senate bill that passed.
Madam Chair, I would move that substitute.
Do I hear a second? Are there any further discussion then of the motion for the committee substitute to House Bill 53? It's a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the substitute as described, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now they are in the same posture. Thank you very much for your patience.
Madam Chair, I have another motion.
Delegate King.
I would move House Bill 53 as just amended be incorporated into House Bill 839.
Is there a second? Discussion. All those in favor of incorporating HB 53 into HB 839, say aye. Aye. Oh, we have to recorded vote. Please record your vote on the electronic voting machine. And now I'm not recorded, but it is a yes. There we go. Of all those voted who wish to vote, the HB 53 is incorporated into House Bill 839 by a vote of 21 yes, nay 0, abstention 1. And now the bill before us would be House Bill 839 as amended with HB 53 incorporated. Any questions? If not, please clerk, please open the roll. All those who wish to vote, vote on the electronic voting machine. Let's report with substitute. Have all voted who wish to vote? The vote, HB 839 with substitute incorporating HB 53 passes unanimously. All right. The next on our agenda then is HB 1413. This is the traditional bill of conformity to the changes made on the federal income tax. Council, please report an amendment.
Would you like me to just explain what the substitute does, Madam Chair?
As the Okay. Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair will present the bill, House Bill 1413.
Again,
Is there a substitute?
There is a substitute. If the substitute will be distributed,
Council,
as it's being distributed, I will.
Yeah, the council is distributing a substitute. I have a motion to adopt the substitute. Second, properly seconded.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could we hear an explanation of the differences before we adopt the substitute, please?
Sure, Delegate. I just wanted to make sure we had a posture properly before us before we can talk about the substitute. But I'd be happy to have the delegate speak to the changes, and then we will adopt the substitute.
Okay. Thank you very much. The committee substitute before you, again, as I indicated, this is our traditional emergency conformity bill to allow a timely preparation of Virginia income taxes in conformity with the changes in the federal income tax law that has been made in the past year. Although in this case, the substitute also does indicate at the request of tax department that the look back goes back 2 years because of the way in which the federal government indicated the effective dates of some of their changes, and this is why you will see in the enactment clause in the substitute, as you saw in the original, that it's effective as of January 1, 2018, and I thank Delegate McNamara for bringing that to my attention so I could check it out that that was intentional, that it's 2018. Having said that, the only place in which we deconform, which makes it in the same posture as the Senate version, is in the change in medical deductions. Because of the budget impact, at this time we are not conforming with that provision, which would have maintained the medical deduction at 7.5%. It is still going to remain at 10%. Other than that, there is conformity on all of the issues, including disaster relief and many of the other small changes that were made, as you see in your impact statement.
Madam Chair, if I could just make one correction.
Council.
The original bill had the provision in it about it applying to taxable years beginning on and after January 1, 2018. So that was in both the original bill and the substitute. So the only change in the substitute is this provision that deconforms from the medical expense deduction floor.
Appreciate the clarification.
Any further discussions on the motion? The motion that is currently pending is a motion to adopt the substitute. Properly seconded. All in favor? Delegate McNamara.
Thank you. Just could tax, I assume it has something to do with extenders, why we're using 2018. Could you give me an example of an extender that might be impacted that we went back to 2018?
The unincorporated business.
Commissioner, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Tax Commissioner with the Virginia Department of Taxation. Delegate McNamara goes back to things like the unincorporated business tax on churches, and I think there's a provision in there, a small provision for retirement administration. They advanced the date, the age at which required minimum distributions required to come out. So those are a couple examples.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to members. Thank you to the Commissioner. Are there any further questions on the motion that's pending before us, which is a motion to adopt the substitute? Properly seconded.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Department of Taxation.
Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Carter.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would ask the Department of Taxation, what's the expected revenue impact of this Section 6 that deconforms us from the reduction in the medical expense deduction floor, increasing that from 7.5% to 10%? What's the expected revenue impact of that?
52 million?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Kristen Collins from the Department of Taxation. So if I understand Delegate Carter correctly, you're asking about the revenue impact of the medical expense deduction piece. So by deconforming from that piece, we would be preserving revenues of $39.7 million in fiscal year 20 and $14 million in fiscal year 21. That's how much it would cost if we had conformed to it. So by deconforming, we would be preserving those revenues.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any further discussions on the motion, which again is a motion to adopt the substitute, which we still haven't done, with it properly seconded? So if not, I'll call the pending question, which is a motion to adopt the substitute. All in favor say aye. Any opposition? If not, now we can open up to further discussion on the matter before us. Are there any members of the committee that have further questions on the version that we just adopted, which is the substitute? Seeing none, are there any members of the public who would like to speak in favor or opposition to this measure? Mr. Secretary.
Aubrey Lane, Secretary of Finance. We do support this measure with the amendment that was in place. I want to make sure the budget the governor introduced deconformed from everything. These came into effect after his introduced budget. So the way it was explained, by deconforming from the medical expense, we preserve that money. It does not have to be found in the budget. The impact to the budget, because of what we've done, is about $20 million between the 2 years. So I want to make sure that by conforming to the two provisions, it's about a $20 million impact to the budget. So, but with that, we do support this amendment and support this provision.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Any further comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Emily Walker with the Virginia Society of CPAs. We strongly support this bill in whichever form it passes. I would like to, just to allow tax season to begin timely, I would like to point out that by deconforming with the medical expense piece, you're reversing an action that you took last year to conform with it. It is an issue that causes some complicated calculations. That being said, I understand it has a large revenue impact. Thank you.
Thank you to Ms. Walker. Are there any further questions? Delegate McNamara.
Thank you. I intend to support, because I think conforming is critically important, and we have to do it. I'm a little disappointed that we're going to go away from conformity on medical expense. It seems $39 million is 1/7 of 1% of our budget. And I think we could have figured out how to get it in the budget, and every time we take another little exception, we complicate the overall tax policy, and I think that shouldn't be our goal as a committee. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Any further questions? Delegate
One quick question. Are these monies anticipated in the governor's presented budget or no?
The $20 million is not. In other words, by us conforming to those two provisions. The governor's budget conformed to a date before these extenders went in. So the $20 million does not. And to your question also, we have deconformed to this. We have a history of deconforming to medical expense deductions in the past. So we didn't do it last year, but we have a history much before that. So the other two we have not. And so I think that's consistent with our precedent in the past.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Are there further discussion among the members and no further comments from the public?
Move to report as amended.
I hear a motion to report as amended. Second, properly seconded. Clerk shall open the board. Clerk will close the roll. The motion on House Bill 1413 to report with a substitute passes on a 20-2 vote, and I want to thank Chairman Watts for carrying the bill. I'll turn it back to the chairman for further announcements.
Further business before the committee?
Madam Chairwoman.
Delegate Lindsay.
Having voted on the prevailing side, whereby HB 730 did not report, I move for the reconsideration of that measure.
Thank you. Given that 730 was my bill, Delegate Keem, if you would take over the chair.
Sure, Madam Chair. There's a motion that was properly seconded to reconsider the vote by which we failed to report House Bill 730 at the last meeting of the full committee. Is there any discussions on the motion? If not, the clerk. Well, this is actually just a voice vote, isn't it? Yeah, it's a voice vote to move to reconsider.
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Gilbert.
Just parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, sir.
Can I just, did the gentleman who made the motion vote against the bill previously, just confirming that?
To the Delegate Gilbert, I would answer that the vote count was actually, I believe, 9-11, and Delegate Lindsay and a number of others had voted no.
And I just, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
it's not that I don't trust the gentleman. I just know that sometimes I think all of us have made that motion before having not been on the prevailing side, so I just want to make sure of that.
I would assure the gentleman that that is precisely the way it is recorded in our committee process. The motion is to reconsider, by which we fail to report, and vote. I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. So the motion to reconsider is successful, which means that House Bill 730 is back before this committee. And I will turn this back to Chairwoman. I do not believe that we're.
Still,
do you want to?
It's my bill.
Do we want to? Okay. So the House Bill 730 is properly back before this committee. We will take this up at this time. Then, Delegate Watts.
Just to remind the committee, House Bill 730 is the bill that deals with the loophole in the way in which third-party, we'll call them gig economy businesses, have been reporting payments made to people who are working within that third-party network transaction. This affects lodge, B&B, ride share, shopping services, other similar businesses. Essentially, the appropriate reporting is using a 1099 which requires a $600 threshold for reporting, and instead they have been using a special form called 1099K, which is a $20,000 threshold and more than 200 separate transactions with the person that is working under this third-party settlement organization. Again, this is a twofold problem. It is a major loophole where will be shifting our tax burden more and more to hourly wage employees as this loophole continues. It also has a budget impact of $20 million a year, which again, as we shift and this reporting does not take place. I will say one thing, that our tax system's progressivity depends upon the structure of the income tax. And not reporting income is not the way in which our whole system is set up, which is still an amazement to many countries throughout the world, that in fact our income tax is based on honesty in reporting of income and then progressivity on what is taxed. The concerns that were raised about this bill, I would indicate, to the degree that they are focused on that element of our society, these people would not be paying income taxes, but the honesty in reporting is very important for the integrity of our system, particularly under this $20,000 threshold, as this would grow and grow. And this is the appropriate time, I believe, to act on this bill. And I hope it'll be the pleasure of the committee to support the bill. I don't know if there's any comment from the public, which we had not heard before.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Watts. And for those who are following, this bill was considered at the last meeting that the full committee met on January 15th. We had a thorough debate, both among our members as well as from the public at large. Obviously, if there are members of the public that would like to speak on this measure now, we'd be happy to entertain. Otherwise, we go to the motion. Secretary.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me make it clear, this bill doesn't change our tax laws at all.
People didn't get a
If you're getting
chance
this
to.
income,
That's why
you're
I
supposed to be
mentioned.
reporting, just like a waitress or anybody else. What we have here are separate, these are called third-party settlement organizations who call themselves, whether or not they really are. Some are choosing to report income. When I say report, give a 1099 on the income that should have been reported anyways. It's similar to the internet sales tax. They should have been reporting, but all we're assuming is, and the federal government's looking at this, is to also make sure that we're consistent. We are now taking the adoption that the 1099 miscellaneous, just like a waitress or anybody else, if you receive that, has the same reporting threshold from the company. It should be no expense on the companies. They already have to do this. They're already issuing 1099 Ks. So this is about making sure that that everybody is on the same playing field. So it has nothing to do with whether one chooses to pay their taxes. They're supposed to be reporting those taxes regardless of whether or not they get one of these 1099s. And so we're making it consistent. So with that, we support this bill strongly in that it is recognizing what's happening in our economy and making sure everybody is treated the same.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. There was a request to speak by Delegate Carter. I recognize Delegate Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill caused me a great deal of heartache in the last meeting, and my concerns have not gone away on this bill. I am a Lyft driver outside of the legislative session, and this bill will primarily impact those folks who drive for Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, Grubhub, companies like that. And one of the ironies here is that actually less than an hour after we took that vote, whereby we failed to pass or failed to report this bill to the floor, I actually received a notification from Lyft saying that because I earned less than $20,000 through them, that they were not going to give me a 1099. Now, that outright says, from the company that the tax information is not required. It doesn't say that you're still required to pay taxes on it, right? We've got people that are currently operating under the assumption that the company didn't send me a tax document. I don't have to report it. I understand that there's a problem with that there are taxes owed. However, I believe the problem to be with the company. And Mr. Chairman, we heard from the Secretary that there's no impact, there's no financial impact on the companies. I think that's the problem. I think that the way we go about addressing this is we need to decide whether or not these workers are going to be W-2 employees or 1099 contractors. I don't think that the way to go about this is trying to get an additional $20 million a year out of the Lyft drivers, some of whom are, as I said in the last committee meeting, are sleeping in parking lots. They're working 10 hours for Uber, and then Uber stops them from driving anymore for safety, and they have to turn Uber off and turn on Lyft and drive for 6 hours for them until they in some cases fall asleep at the wheel. I mean, these are people that are struggling to make ends meet. And I understand trying to increase compliance on this, but I think this is going about it completely the wrong way. I think we need to increase the protections for the workers, not go after them for $20 million a year or more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. And just procedurally, we had opened the conversation to the public comment, but I do recognize that two members of the committee would like to speak. So rather than turning this time into either specific question to the public or such, I just turn to Delegate Byron first and then Delegate Lindsay for their comments, and then I'll go back to the public comment period.
I just had a question based on the Secretary's comments. I just want to make sure I remembered from the subcommittee meeting when we were talking about this, the 1099s that people are already required to do. This would also require a 1099 to go to the state tax department. Was that correct?
To Delegate Byron.
And that was not required before.
At this level.
If they filed a 1099, Delegate Byron, yes. The problem was the reporting threshold. In other words, they weren't reporting them, as the Delegate Carter said, until they got to $20,000. It didn't mean that they had to report those incomes. It just means that one company chose to use the 1099K, another chose to use the 1099 miscellaneous. The 1099 miscellaneous is what is traditionally used across whether you're receiving contractor or other types of remuneration. And in terms of whether or not they should be contract employees or contractor employees, there is another bill before this committee or coming through appropriations regarding classification. The tax department will look at its routine audits and stuff. This is about compliance with a current law that's already on our books in terms from the individual standpoint.
Just another follow-up question. You mentioned federal, so they're looking at this on a federal level as well.
That is correct.
Would there be a reason for us to wait till we have something uniform with whatever is being done?
We comply with there's those who believe the federal law requires this now. They're just looking for a clarification. So from our perspective, we're following what we're seeing at the federal level.
Thank you.
Delegate Lindsay, did you have a question?
Move the pending question.
Delegate proposed a motion, but we don't have a pending question because right now we're in the public comment period. So I would urge the members to hold off on that and let the public speak first. And then after that, if there is a motion, then I'd move to the pending question.
Parliamentary inquiry. Was not there a full hearing in this matter where the public was afforded the opportunity to give input?
I'd answer the delegate by saying that the last time we had this meeting, I understand that a couple of people that wanted to speak were just not available at that time, and or were there but were not able to speak. And so, out of fairness for the public process, since we have people gathered here, why don't we afford the public a chance to speak, and then we'll proceed to any motions that anybody would like to make. Anybody from the public who'd still like to speak, this is your chance.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Robert Melvin with the Virginia Restaurant, Lodging, and Travel Association. We're very much in support of this measure and urge you to support it as well. We think that will go and level the playing field and ensure that that everyone is paying the appropriate income taxes and reporting them.
Thank you. Anybody else? If there are no more comments from the public, any other questions or comments from the members? If not, the chair will entertain a motion. Motion to report. There's a second, properly seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, clerk will call the machine, or whatever it's called. Whatever this thing's called.
Just open the vote.
Yeah. The clerk will close the roll. The vote is 14 yeas, 7 nays on the motion to report, and the bill is reported. Madam Chair, I'll turn the podium back to you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Keim. Is there any other business before the committee? If not, the committee shall adjourn. All right, entertain a motion.